the German Embassy in Buenos Aires. It's a great pleasure to be here. Germany seeks to see a close partner to Latin America and Argentina. We have many challenges in the modern world. It's better if we address them jointly. One of the major challenges of today is the huge changes in our economies. Our economies need to continuously grow to become modern economies with green and competitive resource efficiencies, as well as digital technologies. For this, last year, our ministries of foreign affairs from Germany and Argentina put together Foro Futuro. In the framework of economic cooperation with Argentina and the region, we would like to bet on two pillars mainly. One pillar has to do with tighter cooperation in the field of energy transformation in connection with the environment, and the other pillar is digitalization of the 4.0 industry. For example, we want to build a stronger tie between startups from both countries and regions, Europe and Latin America, Argentina and Germany. It's also our intention to bring to Buenos Aires the Hanover trade show, which is the largest trade show around the world, to present the progress and advances in digital transformation. This trade show will be held in March of next year here in Buenos Aires. The other big challenge that we share is the question, how can we make our countries and economies more inclusive without discrimination? How to achieve equitable participation of women and men in employment and in professional degree programs. In Germany, we also have a lot to do. My ministry, for example, there has very few women ambassadors, unfortunately, for the time being. As regards foreign policy, we have also focused very much on gender equality and women's rights. We have taken on a commitment to a feminist foreign policy with a look on Latin America. We have created a women's network called Unidas. It is a network whose goal is to link women's and feminist movements in Latin America and also Germany and Europe in order to strengthen their fight for equality and women's rights. In the framework of this network, our Foreign Affairs Minister Analia Vermok this year, for the first time, granted an award for the rights of women and democracy to an Argentine movement that all of you know, Ni Una Menos, Sheroes in Games. It's a project supported by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Germany. And this project gathers those two priorities and pillars of our cooperation with the region and with Argentina: digitalization and equal participation of women and men in the economy. We all know that video games are popular for girls and boys, but I have learned that in connection with production and design of video games, women represent a minority. I believe that 30% in this industry. In my opinion, we see also that in the protagonists, in the themes of many video games. The director of the Goethe-Institut will discuss this project in greater detail. But with this support, we would like to contribute for more girls to get enthusiastic about the development of video games and to encourage them to do so from an early age, not only in Argentina, as you know, but in many other countries of the region. The Goethe-Institutes of Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, Peru participate in this project. We hope to make a small contribution in this way to encourage young women to grow in the digital world and to make them closer to the digital world. And only by doing this shall we all be better. Thank you very much, and I wish you great success. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm the director of the Goethe-Institut here in Buenos Aires. Video games represent creativity, emotion, competition, and the pleasure of gaming. For some years, we can increasingly see this as cultural productions. Developing computer games is a complex process that requires not only creativity, but also programming knowledge, audio design, image knowledge, and much more to be able to tell empathetic and exciting stories, creating new worlds, and thus developing attractive games. Unfortunately, there are very few women active in this field. As Mr. Herzog has already said, the percentage ranges between 20 and 30% in most countries. In many video games, the characters are still driven by gender stereotypes. There's still a lot of work to be done in this sense for girls and young women to have the same opportunities. Therefore, to contribute for video games, not to fall in the old role models, but for them to represent the different facets of our world, offering opportunities of identification for all. The Goethe-Institut is committed around the world, not just with the teaching of the German language, but also with cultural exchange, the creation of professional networks, culture and cultural diversity, and the sustainable development in the cultural sector. Given this context, the Goethe Institutes of South America have already held some projects in the field of video games and women over the past few years, particularly for the professionalization and the creation of women's networks in the video game industry. It is clear that we need to start to improve the situation earlier, i.e., we need to encourage girls to develop digital games at an early stage. We need to support them, reinforce self-confidence, particularly in connection with the technical aspects. And we need to offer girls and young women offers for training and specific qualification. Therefore, together with partners in 7 Latin American countries and Germany, we have started the Sheroes in Games project, girl designing digital games networks training strategies with the purpose of creating a network of players jointly creating materials for training and the promotion of games and carrying out workshops for girls as examples for them to try these materials out. We are very happy that the partner countries have met physically for the first time in this project that has been ongoing since March of 2021. They have taken advantage of the past 2 days to exchange ideas and assess the results obtained and to plan for the next months of this project. We didn't want to miss the opportunity of having so many international experts gathered here in Buenos Aires. And we have decided to present this project to the public, even though the results are not final yet. For this, we have invited other women from the industry, besides some project partners or project members, for them to discuss the professions and gender diversity, both in the video gaming industry and in the technological sector as a whole, in order to discuss about possible solutions for greater gender justice. There's an exhibition of a selection of video games created by women from different countries, which is on display today and tomorrow, showing a wide range of themes. We would like to show all the interested parties, especially girls, behavioral models that can encourage them to consider a career in this field for themselves. There's also the exhibit of universities and training centers where you can find out what they offer in the video gaming development field. We would like to thank the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Germany, which is funding this project today. I would like to thank the Science Cultural Center and the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation for offering this beautiful site, as well as our partner Women's in Games Argentina for their support. We would like to thank the partners of the participating countries as well as all the collaborators without whom this event wouldn't have been possible. I wish you all an inspiring day. And now I will turn it over to Lucian Ulton and Julieta Lombardelli, project coordinators who have worked really very hard to prepare this event. In terms of content and organization, with the support of my colleagues Ula Vesta, Agustila Salomon, Ciencia Quiroz, and Nicole Naveburi from the Goethe-Institut information team in Buenos Aires. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Philip Herzog and Maka. Thank you very much. Thank you all for being here. Welcome you all. We are going to start with this great seminar, with this great day, where we will have to start with a panel where we will be working with different professions, diverse professions that make up this great universe. We will be encouraging girls and women so that they understand that within this discipline, they can grow and work extensively. After the break, we will have a panel on STEAM, where we will be discussing different issues and finding solutions to see how within such diverse disciplines as science, technology, arts, and mathematics, women have also gained ground, and we will continue working so that more people, regardless of how they perceive themselves, can continue researching. And finally, we will be presenting our toolkit, which is the result of huge collaborative work that we have conducted over the past few months. And we will continue to strengthen it based on this great network of communities and countries which contribute on a daily basis for collaborative knowledge, thus motivating a space that's going to continue gaining ground as a result of these great initiatives. Now, I will turn it over to my colleague, who's the project coordinator. Thank you, Juli. Let me add that we have also an exhibit of 8 international video games exclusively developed by women, which represent the variety of proposals that can be created, that we can create when we are given the room for that or the space for that, and when we also open our roads towards it. Without further ado, because the protagonists are our speakers, let me turn it over to Micaela Mantegna, who's the abo gamer, the law gamer, who has just come from Spain, Vancouver. She has just been selected between 20 people around the world. Well, her resume is so extensive. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. I admire my friends very much because it is something that is an industry that I began with a lot of fear, but we will begin today. I ended up having friends for life. I'm going to speak about the imposter syndrome, and I am terrified because my clicker is not working. Of course, something must always fail with technology. Great. Now it has no battery. How should we do it? Okay. Otherwise, I can do it with the mouse. Okay. We will fix everything and we will improvise. Do you want to tell us a bit? Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to speak about this over the presentation. My idea was to speak a bit about the imposter syndrome because when they said about doing a keynote, I do a lot of academic keynotes. I can speak to a lot of people and speak about many subjects. I've spoken in front of policymakers, presidents, lawmakers, very, very important people in the industry, but I've signed NDAs about that. But whenever we are on stage, we get anxious and fearful. I can see people nodding, and I want to see people on the chat channel sharing their experiences because this is generally something we don't speak about. Because part of this imposter syndrome fear is that we will be found out, so we won't be able to say what we feel. And something that I learned is that the first no comes from ourselves. First refusal when we apply for a job, we see the requirements and we ourselves self censor unless we can fulfill all of the requirements that that job posting demands. We ourselves say when seeing some opportunities, I won't be able to do it. They will realize that I'm no good. Okay, I want to tell you a story. This is me in 2019. I am a lawyer. I haven't introduced myself properly. And I always loved video games. There are many things that happened in my life that have to do with a personal crisis. I did not like my profession. I worked like any lawyer with a suit. I had my makeup on and all the stereotypes of a lawyer. And I was deeply unhappy. I could not find my passion. My passion was video games, but we began to add to the level of difficulty of the imposter syndrome. First, we're women, then it is a profession that is not naturally associated to video games. I lived in Patagonia in the south of the country. So, how would I be able to achieve this? And slowly I began, after this personal crisis, to change my own history, to study what I needed to study to get here. In December, I applied to a scholarship to be able to go to GDC. I paid for my ticket, but they gave me the entry into it. And my project was we need a group of women in Argentina that work for other women in video games in Argentina. But my first thought is, how can I push this? I am just a lawyer. What do I have to do with video games? So I went to GDC, and like many of the good things that have happened in my life, it involves mass effect. because Mass Effect is a particular video game. People who know it are laughing at this. It is a video game that was always present and that many times helped me to think about things when I decided, for example, to begin about AI ethics issues. It was through a character on that video game that was wondering whether a robot could have a soul. So Mass Effect is always part of my story and an important part of my life. In this GDC, there was an event that was called the Rally, and I wanted to go to this event to coordinate with other girls to get to know their organizations and to get contacts. So I was lost in the streets of San Francisco without knowing. I was literally lost because geographically I would walk and it would be lost in that sense, and also metaphysically because I didn't know what am I doing here? I don't belong here. They'll find out. They'll ask me for the gamer ID. What did you play? What didn't you play? How much of a gamer really are you? Why are you here? So this was stronger and stronger. And as I was walking around, a person behind me, I had my GPS on my hand. As a good Latin American, I did not have a chip for my cell phone, so I had to depend on other people's Wi Fi. I walked, everybody's laughing here because it happens. I was wandering throughout San Francisco, and somebody said, "What a nice backpack you've got." They recognized the Mass Effect backpack. When I turned around, I'll tell you the end of the story later on, but this person we spoke, I took a selfie with them. And they said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to this event." And they said, "Come with us. We're going there." And that gesture gave me back a life in gaming terms. And I thought, okay, I can go. I trust them and I can go into this place. At that place, I met a lot of people. I brought new friends. I saw people from here that I only met in events every now and again. This is a very special place to me because this is where the conferences were here, and women were all over sitting, and we would see each other once every so often. And generally, we would meet in the loo, in the toilets. And so I brought some friends, some ideas, some contacts, but I always go back to this. This is not for me. I don't dare. I'm sure they're looking for somebody else. I won't be able to do it. And the hammering on my head, they will find out who I am. I'm standing here thinking the same. How can I give a keynote? And there are no achievements that can cover this lack. Before hearing about the imposter syndrome, my first contact with this was Harry Potter. Let us not speak about J.K. Rowling, but let us speak about the books. They were my companions for many years. And when I read the fifth book, at some point they tell Harry Potter, "You defeated Voldemort." And Harry Potter is like, "No, no, no, I was just lucky. I don't know what happened. I was at the right time in the right place and I knew the spell." And I thought, this is what I feel. Everybody keeps saying to me, "You studied, you did this." And I always feel it was coincidence. That was the first click that I had in my head about the fact that there was something behind it. And many years later, I heard about the imposter syndrome, which is quite crazy, but I was quite old. I'd spent about 20 something years in my life without knowing what it was. And I would have saved a lot of time knowing this and knowing that a lot of other women felt that way, that I was not the only one. And that by hiding it, all I did was to deepen that situation and make it stronger. What is it, this syndrome? It is the fact that you always feel that you have less capability than you think. You feel that you have a personal incompetence, and it is like a torturing cycle because the dark side of this is the anxiety. We are like a hamster rolling around with a permanent state of anxiety and more self demanding. It doesn't matter how much you did yesterday, how well you did it. I'm sure the next time it'll be worse, and I'm sure next time something will fail. So we live in a perpetual um, need for preparing ourselves more. And of course, we have a fundamental inequality. Who discovered this? Two women. In 1978, two psychologists wrote this paper where they speak about high achieving women, these women who are extraordinary, and they noticed a pattern in feeling an imposter. Later research showed that this is not something that just happens to women. It is common for human beings, but is higher the percentage of women who feel this way. And we have already an inequality that is basic. They talked about this. Women tend to attribute their own success to luck or effort, but never to their own capabilities, whereas men, they believe they deserve it. This is me and I deserve it. And this is something that we live with and we suffer through it. And the second no, of course, is the systemic inequality, because we are always at a disadvantage. I was in a meeting the other day, and it was a couple of women in a big round table. And one of the things I noticed is that everybody was actually with their back to the wall. We were all aligned against the wall because unconsciously, 20% of our brain is thinking of our personal safety, the things that are expected of us, and we don't go into a meeting room with a clean brain to be able to start. And then we have, of course, inequalities when it comes to salaries, to work conditions, and to all kinds of things. So my proposal is the following. We should begin. The world is not under our control, but what is under our control is ourselves. So we should begin by saying, not saying no to yourself, basically. Just say, no, no, I'm not going to say no. And what happened when I began to say, not say no? Things started to open up that I would have never imagined. As a lawyer, Harvard, is like the place to be. I don't really like Legally Blonde's message, but Legally Blonde's message I'm not too keen on, but it is like the mecca of what can happen professionally. And the fact of saying, I'm going to send that application, I will trust myself, made it so that I could go as an affiliate in the Berkman Klein Center studying video games, putting video games on the table in the academic arena as an activist of human rights, speaking about video games and human rights conferences. And this for me was something unattainable. I would always look at a lot of people that I admired who were at the center. But this happened when I sent the application and I broke through the fear of thinking, what will they think about me? They'll think, what is she thinking of? How can she apply? Because we normally think, what will others think of us? The second wonderful thing that happened in this short time, and what Lou was asking about, was that I became a TED Fellow. TED every year chooses 20 people around the world, from around the world, that they consider are doing things to change the status quo: activists, artists, lawyers. And when I applied, I felt they wouldn't choose me, of course. And when I had the first interview, I thought, oh, I'm just going to go to see how I do or to see what it's about. And until I got the acceptance letter, which was like getting the letter from Hogwarts, I could not believe it. Part of my profession is to be a speaker. So, what is the other mecca for a speaker? What is the biggest goal? Is to apply for a TED conference and present your talk. To do a TED talk is in Vancouver, in the mecca for TED. Not only that, but we always like to play extra hard. As a TED fellow, they told us when we were there, the organizers, that it has a ratio of acceptance that is lower than Harvard. Only 1% of the applications are accepted. So when they said that, you should say, or you should begin to accept the evidence and to trust it. But no, of course not. We will always mistrust our own capabilities. And that's why, until I did not see myself on this big screen, I felt I would be denied, that they would realize that made a mistake and they would send me back to Argentina. The mouse is not working now. The mouse realized that I'm an imposter. If not, we will just do it from here. Okay, so where does everything begin? It begins, and this is a message for parents who are looking at this, it begins by access, begins by small things. It begins by the fact that when I was a little girl, I had access to a console in the same condition as my brother. My brother hates this picture because has long hair, and you can see I'm a little girl here. And how does it continue? It continues, or how does it end? We never know how it ends. I the the talk has not been published, and I'm thinking I'm sure they'll find something in the talk and they won't publish it. They won't stream it. It's not enough for me to go on stage. I always feel doubtful. So this initial thought that was holding me back, which was, what does a lawyer has to do with video games? What am I doing right now? I am working. I'm sure you've heard about the metaverse and I'm sure you're sick of it. But there is a very important thing, because the metaverse is a conjunction of internet, video games, our own lives, and social networks. We must speak about the ethical problems and the regulatory issues. So I am working, researching in developing ethics for the metaverse and a regulatory framework for the metaverse. I am working, I do conferences, I give advice on this because, of course, the metaverse will involve all aspects of our lives and will impact us, will have an effect. So, a lawyer is necessary to be able to analyze the ethical aspects. So, do you remember the person in my story? Do you know who this person is? It's Phil Spencer. When I was walking lost in San Francisco, the person who said that's a great backpack and who then said, you know that I worked on that game. And after 3 seconds of me stammering, because I am a very big fan of Xbox, I managed to articulate a couple of words to thank him. He was walking towards the event with other women in the industry who were absolute champions in Xbox and who were going to show the path they had done for the ones who were behind. We were 3 blocks away from the event. I took a picture and my intent was, okay, thank you. And that's when he said, why? We're going the same place. So that phrase was not only geographical, it was they were trying to change the industry and to include all of us women. So for me, that act of generosity, it was something he didn't have to do, but it meant that I had a push to do a lot of things. That's why I was saying this stage and this place are very important to me, because many years ago, in 2019, we presented women's in game in Argentina at EVA 2019 with Lou, who was in the panel. And from there, we managed to have very important things. The importance of having a community that can defend you, that makes you feel that you're not alone, and a community that going from seeing video game conferences only with very few women speakers. In 3 years after its founding, we had a conference where 98% of speakers were women or gender diversity people. And I want to have a big round of applause for Bali Colombo. She was the alma mater of this. So my challenge today for those who are here and for whoever is watching and for whoever's going to watch this is do not leave today without thinking whether you want to work in this industry, what do you want to work as? And if you are working in the industry, who can I help? So all of those people who are at the chat channel, who are working actively in the industry, leave your contact details. Please put something there to inspire other girls who want to get in and girls who are looking at this. Break with the imposter syndrome that I know it's very hard to break. The first step is breaking that wall, talking to somebody and begin to move forward. Go to the places where there are meetings and break that imposter syndrome. Falde Kotoikin is here. I am a fan of Tolkien. He said, the road never knows where it's going to go, but you must always give the first step. I want to close with this. It is the choices that show what we truly are, our choices far more than our abilities. So be kind, be patient. Uh, Whoever is working here, let us be the mentors that we wished we had had. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mika. Don't go away. We will sit here in this great living room, and you are sitting in the middle. So, since we have a few minutes left, while the panel members get ready to discuss professions, what can we ask you? My impostor wanted to run away. They will realize. I loved that phrase. Everything starts with access. That's precisely what Sheroes in games is. Opening up that access and allow girls to get there from an early age. If they don't have a family who understands and who makes that space for them, they will be set aside, watching things from a distance. We have discussed this with Latin American girls, and this is true all the time. First, gaming, particularly in connection with technology, was very much linked to boys. The console was bought for boys, and we were gamer number two. When there was some free spare time, we had access. Fortunately, that is changing now and having different devices. And that's why I highly appreciate the mobile industry because it allows access to gaming. The game is yours now because clearly everyone, almost everyone has a smartphone. Something else that we were saying with the girls is that having been able to approach video games is what uh, arose that interest in doing this for a living. Something else you mentioned with the intention of attending the TED Talks, those motivating talks, and also creating these role models. Because if there's something that this does, is to encourage young generations, and also adult women who say, "Can I now work on programming and get closer to this fantastic universe, which is so attractive? Can I produce something now?" Yes, you're totally right. And that's extremely important. This idea of saying, I'm, I'm 42 years old, and the industry usually sees that this is for younger women, but that's not true. And the second prejudice is that maybe there's something else. Some women who are playing with video games do not consider themselves gamers. We are imposters even with the things we like. Women sometimes say, I play Candy Crush, I'm not a gamer. So they are their own imposters. This panel, I believe, is extremely interesting because it will discuss the different roles and the different entry gates for the industry. As I was saying, what does a lawyer have to do with this? Well, she has a lot to do here. No one was in a position to predict that metaverse was going to be so popular and that there were going to be people working on ethics within the video game industry and companies. We shouldn't think about today I can't, and you never know how things are going to unfold along your road. What are your next steps that you can reveal, of course? I can't say that. I can't tell you that. It's more than Hogwarts. I can't believe it. Let me tell you a small story. When I reached that place, there were very few of us. I locked myself up in the bedroom and I said, what shall I do? What shall I do? As I was looking at myself in the mirror because the names, I couldn't believe I was going to be sitting next to those names. I wish that that's what's coming next, but well, there's the launching of the book. Where shall we look you up? On the social media. You can find me on Instagram. You can follow Women in Games Argentina. Um, that's an excellent point of contact to join the community. There are going to be more talks and many trips going forward. Shortly, Berlin, New York. So you can upload messages on Instagram for mothers and parents and tutors. Never speak pejoratively of the industry because this is a huge and wonderful industry. So never use the diminutive for the games. Let's invite our next panel members. Mika was saying, why am I here? Because I'm a lawyer. The next panel is going to talk about the different professions in the industry. So I invite to the stage Ale, who's our host. She's a great referent in the industry. Valeria Colombo, who has a degree in computer science from UBA. She's a gamer. She works as video games developer. She's been doing so for 13 years. And now she's engineering head in Ethermax, and she's member of the board of Women in Games Argentina, and she's the driving force. You will see her around all the time. I don't want to take up more of your time, so the floor is yours. Thank you, Lou, for the introduction. How nice. I love these events. I loved Mika's talk. I've known her for quite a few years. She has a great career. And very proud to be sitting here moderating this panel with industry professionals, with all these girls I admire so much as well. To start off, let me welcome you all once again for the newcomers. Let me make a brief introduction for you to know why this panel has been set up. According to worldwide statistics today, 48% of gamers are women. However, if we look at the 2021 report from ADVA, which is the Argentine Video Game Association, we can see that in the local industry, only 13% of company employees are women, out of which only 8% are in STEAM positions and 6% have leadership positions. Today, I am proud to present and moderate this panel where highly talented people referenced from different roles and professions will share their experience, challenges, and advice for encouraging new voices in the industry. So to start, each of the girls will talk about what they do and their projects and their past. And they will introduce themselves. I have my cheat sheet with the bios, of course. So Lau Palavecino here from Argentina. She's a visual artist teacher and researcher in the field of technological art and game studies. She has conducted projects in experimental video games and electronics, joining traditional art and technology with the goal of tightening bonds with nature. She's a member of the Game Studies group of UNA University and co-founder of Women in Games Argentina. Lau, the floor is yours. Well, thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank Sheroes in Games for having invited me. It's a pleasure to be here. As what I was saying, I'm Laura Palavecino. We have some technological challenges. So, hello, how are you? I'm Laura Palavecino. You can look me up on the social media, my email, Instagram, Twitter. You can also see my web pages to see what I do. I have a degree in fine arts. I've been involved with it, with the fine arts since I was a kid. I also have a degree from the University of Buenos Aires as image and sound designer, and also have a master's degree in electronic arts. What's my relationship with the video game world? Well, from different sides, actually. I work as a designer and artist and also video game animator. I've been doing this for many years, 13 years actually. I work at Globant. At the same time, I'm an independent project developer. I'm a researcher also. I focus mainly on the new media and experimental video games. I'm a teacher and I'm also very much interested in visual arts and in electronic arts. These are some of the articles and projects that have been published or that are about to be published. I have published articles in the UP books. I have also developed some independent projects with UNDREF researchers called Videogames and different approaches to think about the relationship with nature through non-traditional game dynamics, my master's thesis, which I will be defending shortly, as well as some articles that I have published at the UNA Experimentation and Critic Institute. As the user interface designer, I have worked for different companies, as I mentioned earlier, also at intellectual property project. In this case, is Reach for the Stars. It is a musical synchronization game that's based on Strawberry Shortcake video games. Another example of a video game, it's Max Steel in this case, which is another project based on a toy brand. I brought like an assortment of different projects. I have also been involved in the development of other types of games, as I'm currently doing. In this case, these are educational games. Lectores galácticos, galactic readers, to encourage reading and writing in children aged 5 to 8. And primeras palabras, first words. It is a game to teach words to young children, very young children actually, which is a spin-off of Mundo Gaturro, which is a very popular game here in Argentina. And in connection with independent projects that are more related to my academic research, we have this type of projects that are very much based on artistic experimentation with traditional visual arts, innovation, technological innovation, of course, and research on our relationship with nature. In this case, it's Beyond the Garden, which is an artistic installation of video games that has a lot of video projection, as well as alternative controllers that are based on the electroconductive property of the human body. This game deals with the biodiversity at the delta of the Paraná River, our wetlands here in the north of the city of Buenos Aires. It was presented a few years ago, and now we are working for a PC application. This is also an installation video game project. It's an interactive animated poem whose particularity vis-a-vis more traditional video games is that it's done as if it were a painting, a moving painting actually, or a moving illustration. This was my first artistic video game. This is the Tale of the Fox and the Crane, a video game like the previous one. It is played with a Kinect. It has moving illustrations, and it is a love story between a crane and a fox. And it is based on Japanese folklore called Kitsune Yoshomeri, as well as the symbols that these animals represent in Japanese mythology in connection with love and fidelity and companionship, as well as transformation between humans and animals. Orpheus Quest is another video game like the first one. It is based on alternative controller research and development. In this case, it is a story based on Orpheus, the legendary Greek poet. The particularity of this is that it is played with this instrument made by us. I am the one that carried out the project, but I also have people who have supported me. We developed this instrument with laser chords, which is a controller for playing this musical synchronization game. Enchanted Sea, or yes, Mar Encantado, which is a game on the biodiversity of the Argentine Sea. It is based on a scientific research, but it also includes environmental activism, and it has strong development of symbols, trying to convey spirituality of nature. In a nutshell, with my personal projects, I always try to awaken love for nature, interconnecting different types of knowledge. And that was the last one I wanted to show you. Thank you very much, Lau. Before I introduce the next speaker, let me remind you, for those of you on the chat, you can send questions on the chat. I can read them from my phone, and at the end of the presentations, we will have questions and answers. We have Sandra Rosso from Colombia. She as a professional in social communication and journalism, specializing in public relations and corporate communications with 18 years of experience in the technology sector. She has been promoting the digital entertainment industry and video games in Colombia and Latin America by organizing different events and groups that she will surely tell us in a moment.
Okay, hello. Good afternoon. I am a bit confused with the time. My name is Sandra Rosso. As you've said, I am a social communicator and a journalist specializing in PR and brand positioning. And I promote the industry. So, how did I begin in this wonderful world in everything to do with PR and brands? I worked for AMD, which is microprocessors from computers. I was the marketing manager there. The manager from the US came and said that they needed a marketing manager. So he spent all day with me looking for a new manager. And by the end of the afternoon, he said, I've already found a manager. And I felt it would be somebody who we had seen during the day. In 5 minutes, he said, I'm waiting for you at the club where we're going to be with Hewlett Packard because you will be the new marketing manager for Colombia. And felt I didn't know enough about technology. I only know about PR, marketing. And I said, okay, my husband is an engineer. I think he should work, as you were saying about the imposter syndrome. But I said, okay, great. I will accept this challenge, but I need an engineer to help me and support me because I am a journalist and I am a marketing expert. And my mission here is to position a brand, but I need to have the technical support behind me. So that's where AMD began. I began working with them. I positioned the brand. Intel offered me a job because of all these things that I broke as schemes. I said, my heart is green, it's not blue. I want to continue with this. And they gave me that opportunity. So I continued with them. I handled other brands such as Acer, Nvidia, etc. But the way I reached the video game industry was thanks to AMD because who could do performance tests with microprocessors? Gamers. So I had to find them, I had to show them the two processors that we had, which were 64 bits at the time. And I began to fall in love with the industry. I began thinking, why is there no video game magazine in Colombia? At that point, it was only Nintendo, Xbox was coming from the US, but there was nothing there. I did a market research uh, poll, and what I realized is that many people wanted to have a video game magazine. So I asked, why haven't they done so? And what happens with human beings is that they think about what could happen, but it's always negative because they always say, what if I publish it and I go bankrupt, or if it's no good, or if I publish it and nobody supports me? I made the decision of retiring from AMD. I resigned after 5 years, and the uh, Gamers on Colombia magazine, which is a collectible, we be, we began to develop it. I spoke to big stores and said, I'm going to publish a video game magazine, but I don't want it to be codified as a magazine. I want it to be right next to the computers in the technology aisle, next to video games. Of course, stores said, okay, we'll support you. I did a big launch, and guess who funded my launch? Paradoxically, it was not AMD, it was Intel. They paid for all of the event and the show. All of the brands were there. I was able to have the three platforms, Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation there. We came out with the magazine in 2008, and we kept moving forward. And I said, I don't want just a video game magazine that is just transcribing what's happening in the development of video games. I want to go beyond. Of course, all of that information has to be put on the magazine because we are a communications platform and everything that is launched in consoles has to be there. But we want to do something more. We want to have the magazine be a source of inspiration and support for those who are really talented, whoever is developing video games. So we created many events, among them the Games Export um, event. You can see Ian Livingstone here, who is the creator of, I forgot, I will remember in a little while. And we've had representatives from the industry who I never felt would be able to come. They are billionaires. I never thought that they would be willing to come to Colombia, but in the N3, we interviewed all of the industry leaders. Uh, the achievements I had was that I did not want to just to be a Colombian magazine. I wanted to be known elsewhere. We were the only Latin American member who were a partner of the GDC, the E3, the Game Summit in San Francisco and Beijing. And for me, it was an honor to see the magazine distributed in the N3, which is an achievement. I feel like it's my son. Um, that was a very gratifying experience. And these are the events that we have celebrated to support the industry. Games Expo initially was the event for the development of video games and animators, and we also had a gamer section. I don't know if you want to put the first video on so we can see how the first version of this expo worked. It has no sound. Livingston is the creator. Okay, so we're talking there about the industry that at that point was over. This was in 2011. This was the Congress that at the time everybody felt it was like a mini N3 in Colombia. And we invited very important people. We had 18 conference and 18 international speakers. More than 5,000 people came to the second Games Expo. There's here another experience that I would like you to look at, and which is the fact that Games Expo is an event or any project that you have. You may think it's just a project, but you don't know who is next to you. And the Congress was registered. So even if it's a small project, you must register it. So nobody, the lawyer will help us with that. You must register it so nobody steals it. So because we lost the brand, although we had done it 4 times, because somebody else registered. Um, the superintendency of Commerce said that the owner is the person who registers it. So this is an idea and an example of what you cannot do. You must go and make your brand and your project registered. After we came out of Games Expo, we said, let us change the name of it, because the brand said what it matters is the concept, not the name. So we created EGDC, which is Electronic Games Developers Congress. And then in 2009, we were looking for something to do in Colombia to support the industry, and I took the Global Games Jam to Colombia. We did 11 versions of this in Colombia, and we began to do support, so to work with the universities in the development of video games. We also created eSport University, but afterwards University Esport came from Spain and we had to change the brand again. And finally, we used Lude Sports, which is the University League for gaming. Then we did, of course, school tours to train school children. And at the bottom here, what we did was conferences to educate, telling them how the industry works. And we also did tournaments in schools. We also were looking and analyzing and looking because we felt there was something that was missing, which was women. And I found Womanize, and I stalked them for about 2 years. So they finally let me do the Latin American version in Colombia, because this is an event from Berlin, which has been carried out since 2015. I spoke to the organizers and said, I think what you do is great. I want women to see what participation they may have. Womenize is an event that I find very beautiful because it gives visibility to all women who are working in the industry, not only in Colombia, but in Latin America. So to get to meet women who are spectacular, such as the ones who are here, and to show those women to other girls so that they are inspired and so that in future they may replace us. The next one. The same way I organized the Global Game Jam, I felt we had to organize a Latin American event that can give visibility to our region, that allows us to show games, because what I felt is the Global Game Jam was done every year. The idea here is for games to be published, to be supported. And so there is a contact network, and we share culture with all these games, and also for us to vote for games who are from Latin American companies, and we visibilize them within Latam Game Jam. So last year we did the award ceremony, which was it was all of the games that the Latin American industry is developing, and people voted for the Bombero game from Paraguay. That's the creator there with the award. We had academic panels with universities because we said it is important to join industry and academics, because in the academic forum, they will train future professionals, and sometimes is a good opportunity for them to find out what kind of professionals we need. So for 5 days, we have conferences and panels, because it begins on October 25th and ends in the 30th. So jammers develop games, and all of the other
Bueno, la voy a presentar. La siguiente speaker es Rafaela Moraes, de Brasil, especialista en game design y con mucha experiencia en producción de interfaces, arte y animación para juegos digitales y analógicos. Actualmente es socia de Era Game Studio, donde trabaja como lead game designer y designer de interfaces.
Hola a todos. Voy a compartir mi experiencia en desarrollo de juegos con nosotros todos hoy. So I speak English because my Spanish. I worked with video games since 2010. In this case, it's not impostor syndrome. I was lucky to find people that showed me I could do this when I was still in college. And I've started working with a group that researches and develops games in my university.
Ok, bien, ella empezó trabajando en los videojuegos en 2010, tuvo suerte, no tuvo que pasar tanto por el síndrome del impostor, porque tuvo gente que la apoyó desde que empezó a estudiar y le dijo que se podía trabajar en videojuegos.
So I have graduated in graphic design, and I have a specialization, post-graduation in game design for the University of Bahia.
Tiene un título en diseño gráfico y una especialización en diseño de videojuegos.
So it was in the university where I started to work with games. So I have experience in several fields because I was experimenting with them until I found that I really loved to do game design. So make rules and put sense into the game itself.
Bien, empezó a hacer juegos cuando estaba en la universidad, tiene experiencia en un montón de distintas especialidades dentro de los juegos porque fue probando hasta que encontró la que más le gustó, que fue el game design.
So okay, yeah. In this game, it's the first game I've made. I started working with interface design. It was a small team, so I divided the work with another colleague, and we did all the interface for the game, and also some works with scenario and the characters.
Bien, en este juego era un equipo y un poco de los escenarios y los personajes.
So it's an educational game aimed for kids about 6 years old, and it's with a background in the folklore from Brazil. It's based on the Amazonian forest.
Este es un juego educativo para chicos de 6 años.
So it's another interface from the same game. In this one, I worked with illustration and environmental design. I did the paintings and the lines, more of a technical artist.
En este juego trabajó en lo que es la ilustración, en todo lo que es la pintura y el diseño de, bueno, de estas ilustraciones que ven acá.
It's also an educational game. It's to teach about industry revolution. It's called Industriali, and it was made in the same university research group.
Bien, este juego es también educativo, explica la historia de la revolución industrial y se hizo en el mismo grupo de investigación que el anterior.
It's another, yeah. So this one, it's also from the same group. It's another educational game about mathematics. It's about Dom. It's a robot boy that got lost in space.
Bien, este también es un juego educativo del mismo grupo de investigación, es sobre un robot que se perdió en el espacio, que se llama Don.
There's a short video about the game. So it's in Portuguese, but the important is the visuals.
El video está en portugués, pero igual creo que no tenemos audio.
So DOM was a game to teach second grade equations. I think it's how you say it. It's the kids have to solve mathematical problems to advance in the game.
Bien, los chicos para avanzar en el juego tienen que resolver problemas matemáticos.
So this one was the first independent game that I worked with. It's about the independence of Bahia. It's where I live. It's my first mobile game. I've worked with animations in this one.
Este es el primer juego que hizo como un desarrollo indie, no en el grupo de investigación. Y es un juego que trata sobre la independencia de Bahía, la ciudad donde ella vive.
I think there's also a video for this one. So I did the animations of the characters and the environment.
Hizo lo que es la animación de los personajes.
Unfortunately, there is no sound, but this game won a prize for best soundtracks.
Bien, dice que es una lástima que no haya sonido porque este juego se ganó el premio al mejor soundtrack.
It's a tower defense game. It's about the local forces fighting against the Portugal Empire to the independence of Brazil, because it started with Bahia and then with the whole country.
También este juego es también sobre la independencia de Brasil, porque empezó por Bahía y después se movió por el resto del país.
So those ones are also mobile and analogical games. I've done the game design for all of them. It's when I started working with game design in 2015. Those two are analogical games and this one is a mobile game.
Estos son todos los primeros juegos en los que empezó a trabajar como game design. Okay, los primeros dos de abajo son analógicos y el tercero para teléfonos.
So to close, in 2016, I started working with a group of people that are all now my dear friends. And we have developed the first live game in the world. It's a new genre of game that mix the digital with physical actors interpreting the characters.
En 2017 empezó a desarrollar este juego con un grupo que ahora son sus amigos. Y es el primer juego que mezcla arte digital con actores reales que están interpretando a los personajes.
So this is Escape. It's escape room where you are trapped in a laboratory and you have to find your clues to get out.
Es un juego de sala de escape que sucede en un laboratorio y tenés que encontrar cómo salir.
There is also a video. So this is in a live presentation. Usually we do in theaters like this, in auditoriums. We also presented in Campus Party in Brazil.
Este video, no, imagen, video. Es un video. Es de una presentación del juego en Campus Party en Brasil. Es una conferencia.
So this is a short propaganda we did for one of our presentations. So you can see how this works more or less. So Escape is a game developed to rescue that feeling of sitting in a couch with your friends and all together play something and help each other to get through the challenge of the game.
Es un juego que está pensando para que te sientes en el sillón con tus amigos y lo vayas llevando a cabo.
So we have presented SCAP for over 300 people at once. So it was really huge.
Lo presentaron en vivo para más de 200 personas, así que estuvo muy bueno.
It's a game where you have a digital controller, and we developed a way to control the actors in the stage. So they receive the input from the controller, and we random select one player to control the digital controller, and the others help them get through the end of the game.
Okay, entonces uno de los jugadores tiene el joystick y controla al resto de los jugadores.
The others help him control the.
Ok. Entonces uno solo tiene el joystick y los demás lo van ayudando para que avance en el juego.
So I guess
Muchas gracias. Bueno, nuestra siguiente speaker es Anaís Telo Lumbreras de Perú. Trabaja como
co-founder and active member of FEDOX Peru, a non-for-profit organization that supports women in the Peruvian video game industry. I'm Anaís. I'm the co-founder of FEDOX Peru. I'm a video game programmer. And I have a degree in video game design. This is my drawing because I don't like my pictures. I always see myself as if I were about to commit murder, and the cap is part of my personality. So you will see me always wearing a cap. I work currently in video game programmer. I'm a programmer / technical artist. As a matter of fact, it's very interesting how I ended up being a technical artist because I studied video game design, which is different from art. But I was taught programming and art as well. So I was sent to talk to artists, and that's what I do now. As a matter of fact, I love working with artists and helping them make their vision come true. I'm an independent developer, so I have worked in all sorts of fields. I have been a producer, screenwriter. I have done 3D modeling, 2D modeling. I have done music, even though I was very bad at it. It's been fun, without a doubt. It's been quite an experience. And I also think it's an important part of my background. I currently work at a company which I believe it's Peruvian technically. It's a company that develops video games. It's a recent company. They developed a game, and we are currently working on a project that I can't talk about at the moment. If you want to know more about me, I like farming sims very much, and I have spent a lot of time playing Stardew Valley. Too much. I'm the younger in the panel. I am the younger of partners. I'm the youngest at FemDevs. I'm 25 years old. I graduated from the video game program not long ago, 4 or 5 years ago, roughly. I have worked on some projects and places. I hop from one project to the other, from one place to the other, because since I'm just starting, I'm trying to find a place where I feel comfortable and where at the same time I feel that the projects that I'm working on are also fun and interesting. The first place that I joined was Bantam Games. I love this place very much. They treated me very well. It's a Peruvian video gaming company, actually the largest company developing video games. They are outsourced by brands to develop video games. This is the only game that I can talk about because it's the only one where I participated. It's Kart Racers 2. All the other games are under NDA, so I can't talk about them under threat of death. I spent 2 years working at Bantam. It was my first job. It's the first time that I worked with people who are not my friends, because I used to work on university projects with my friends. So I worked with many people. I was hired to work on Unity, but I also was asked to do web games. And then I was chosen to do this game, Kart Racers. Originally, they told me, Anais, wouldn't you like to learn something else? And I said, it's an interesting idea. And 2 months later, since I knew that particular program, they asked me to work on this game because I had learned the program. And I did the only part of the game that moved. Next, please. This is another project that I joined. A friend of mine called me. He's an anthropologist and a game designer, something which you don't see much in Peru. You don't see game designers in Peru, actually. The industry is very small in Peru. People are it's an Innova Schools game, which is an education initiative. During the pandemic, I believe it was created earlier than game to take it to the interior of the country. It's a very nice game. I was a programmer here in this project. I also worked very close to the artists, so I was also a technical artist. That screen there, the second screen on the column in the right, it took me a long time to implement. It was developed for iPhone and iPad. And the iPad screen is square, and the original design was rectangular. So these are some of the things that you don't imagine when you start developing games, the fact that screens differ very much from each other. And this is where I'm currently working. There is another project in between, which I failed to include in my presentation. I was called for this project to work on a game for high school students, an educational game on Peruvian biodiversity and on our different ecosystems. We have many, many ecosystems in Peru because we have many systems. So they wanted to develop a game on biodiversity, just like with Escuela Cadabra, because there wasn't much internet out there. Children, not many have computers, so we wanted them to play on the cell phone. So they wanted to deliver or to develop a cell phone game. It was only then that it was possible to develop cell phone games on WhatsApp with bots, which we didn't do because it's very expensive, but we did make a game that emulates a messaging application. It's very nice. it still needs some touch-ups, but we are working on it, still working on it. And now I'm working on some wolf on a project that I can't speak about right now so that we can complete this game. I have worked in all these places, but my great passion until then was with FemDevs Peru. I'm the co-founder of FemDevs Peru, which is the Association of Women Video Game Developers of Peru. There's a group of 6 people on the team, and we organize for women willing to join the industry. We conduct talks, we organize workshops. We host an event in Peru on video gaming for women. We have made presentations in different places. And we have also held in-person meetings because the purpose of our organization actually is to encourage more women to join the industry, to provide visibility, which they don't normally have, and to create a feeling of community among women, because we have realized there's 6 women at FemDevs Peru, and we all met almost accidentally. When it was founded, there were 3 of us, me, Sol, who was the person who was originally going to come here to Argentina, and Ivana. Ivana used to work with Sol and used to work on another project with someone else who knew me. And we had never seen each other before. So when we started, we realized that there are very few people. The industry in Peru is very, very small, as I said earlier. And within the video game industry, there are very few women and they are all spread out. When I studied design and video games, I would come across other girls from other classes, from other years or cycles. And we would look at each other and we would point fingers to each other. Oh, a girl, look, an older girl out there. There were no women teachers when I joined my program. And when I graduated, there were only 2 women. The rest were all men. So we wanted to place a lot of emphasis on people meeting each other and building bonds and becoming friends, because when you become friends with other video game girls, it gives you more confidence. Because we can go together to events, we can participate together in different things. And we thought that this was really important. We conducted a vocational workshop for teenagers. It was one of the largest events. It was a whole week worth of classes. We looked for different women in video games because we wanted to hold that workshop for young girls and teenagers, and we wanted all teachers to be women in all workshops. We taught a programming workshop. We had programming, art, video game production, music and audio for video games, among other things. So it's one of the nicest events that we have held. And another interesting thing we do, as I said, our industry is very small. There isn't much advertising or magazines or events. As a matter of fact, almost all the events in Peru on video games for developers are organized by us. Another thing we do, we give a lot of emphasis to women, and we also have interviews of Peruvian developers in order to help our male colleagues. We discuss the games that they are in the process of developing. Every time there is a game jam, we invite them
Devs, que es FanDevs España. Nosotras salimos como ramea de ella. Nosotras somos FanDevs Perú. Nos pueden buscar en Facebook, en Twitter. Tenemos un YouTube en el que estamos subiendo ahora las charlas, los talleres, las entrevistas. Y tenemos también una comunidad de Discord que estamos intentando mover. Y como estamos en stream, un saludo para mis compañeras en Perú.
Muchas gracias, Anaís. Bien, la siguiente speaker es Consuelo Gilira de Chile, diseñadora y animadora 3D con amplia experiencia en dirección de arte y producción de videojuegos. Su especialización está en el rigging y
She is
animación
specialized
3D
in rigging and animation 3D for characters and props. She has also collaborated with new generation educational robotics to talk about complex issues. Hello. Hi, the imposter syndrome after the Anais talk. First of all, thank you everybody for inviting me and for being in this fantastic event. Welcome. I'm happy more people have arrived. My name is Consuelo. I am a designer. I studied design in the Catholic University in Chile, and I am passionate about animation. I'll tell you about how I got here. And it has to do a bit with what you were saying before. I feel that from a crisis, many changes arise that we may need in our lives to find our path. I came out of the university where we studied design, and I was thinking about furniture, graphic design, houses, and I began thinking, who lived in Europe, I arrived at digital design. I kept thinking about it and I reached animation. And I decided to study animation. There was nothing subject and I could only find a technical course in 3D. And before I went to study animation, I took this course. That's the first thing in this. You must look for things and you mustn't be fearful of learning new things. I normally find people saying, I'm not technologically minded. I can't learn this program. And I feel that it's on the contrary, I can learn anything. It may be hard. Yes, it is difficult, but it can be done. I'm happy to travel with the pandemic that was gone. So thank you for inviting me. Go a bit forward. and I am an animator. I've worked for many years in the industry. In Chile, I worked on Guanaco Games, one of the first companies in Chile that trained professionals. In fact, it was created that's where I met the most talented people within the gaming industry. I used to work in animation for series before, for TV series. And when I got to video games, I realized that the video game industry has incredible professionals in different areas. For many years, I've been teaching in the university as well. I'm going to tell you a bit more about this, what we are doing there within animation. This was my first short film, my graduation short. It was very narrative based because this degree was to create scripts and to be able to create a story that could be presented at festivals in Europe. And I was telling the story of a refugee child in Africa who had to find his home in this universe of so many displaced people. My content is pretty social and I'm interested in telling stories. As I said, I worked in TV series up there. There is a 2D series called Chilean Geographic. It was local and we couldn't put the videos because they were too heavy. That's a shame. But these are different images. My role here has been rigging and animation. If you don't know video games, within the different areas, there is the artistic area, which it goes hand in hand with programming. And my role as an animator was to take these 3D models to do all the setup, the rigging, so they could move around, because without animation, the video games would not be the same. You need, of course, the programming, the story, and the marketing, the music, and all of these different elements. And things such as we're seeing here, up here, it was a prototype of a game that was pretty famous at the time, and they wanted to test this game in other platforms. So we worked a lot for Xbox and we developed the prototypes and games for that platform back then. What you're seeing here, so you understand that video games don't necessarily have to have a finished prototype to set up an idea. We work a lot with prototypes in university with students. And what you're seeing here was a prototype of a game, of an idea for a game that was shown on a video, which was about 1 minute in length. And in a week, what we did was to do pre-production. So a storyboard, an animatic, the character, rig it, animate it, and then tell the idea of this in this short video. We did not do the prototype of what are the mechanics of the game, the rules. It wasn't necessary. We just needed that, and that was enough back then. And what you're seeing there is a more advanced prototype. We worked for a week, 3 people, and in the other one, it was 3 months and a 15-strong team. And that was something to present to a client, which had all of the elements that a video game had to do, almost like a finished product. Move forward. Besides, I feel I am multifaceted. I like being that way, but technology always goes hand in hand with what I've been working in. I really like teaching with boys and girls, 2 boys and girls. And this project began because I was interested in educational robotics, and I began to look for things to see how these devices, these external devices, which is hardware, connected to software, to mobile apps, in order to teach something, whether it was programming or whatever it was. There is another universe within video games that has to do with serious games. And if you're not in the industry, you can understand serious games have to do with educational games, simulators, to be able to tell stories from different perspectives. I can tell a story, I don't want to be political, but from Trump's perspective, and to see Trump's perspective, Trump as a character has done great things, or a different perspective. So sometimes video games allow us to be in somebody's shoes. The same happens with wars, and serious games allow us to explore that type of situations. Go a bit back. So what we're seeing here, which has a bit to do with the universe of education, are explorations with Arduino to be able to program and teach kids to program. And the fundamentals for this was this plaques, this that arrived in Chile, and it was a very strong brand. And I took this, and with the people who owned this brand at the moment called Brain Toys, we began to think of an idea to see how they can use this with magnets that allow infinite construction as a Lego type, but with magnets, so you could put it on or take it off. And how to include this more educational issue of teaching different skills through a product such as this. And from there on, we began with this research about what was in existence, and I got to Lego. Lego, and for those who don't know, Lego has a program that is very interesting. It's called First Lego League, which every year they bring out a challenge worldwide, and this is something that is for different ages. I work with kids who are between 7 and 11, and it is fantastic because they set a challenge. For example, this year was to speak about future cities, and they put concepts, for example, sustainability, accessibility, to be able to withstand, to have hurricane proof or earthquake proof buildings. So you speak to children about concepts that are very difficult to explain in a different way. We met for 3 months, once a week. We formed 2 different groups of 6 or 8 kids. It was difficult, but it was interesting as a challenge for me. And we spoke about that. What is accessibility? It's very difficult to explain for a child or to understand it, to what is sustainability and accessibility, but we underestimate children because children have concepts that are very interesting and concepts that for us as adults were very difficult for us to understand, and to speak to them through games and play is very important and interesting. They managed to develop this model. I don't think it was a fantastic experience, and this was going to be presented worldwide in different countries. And of course, within Chile, children from all over were coming with their coaches. And because of the protests that we had in Chile in October, we had to suspend it. And we presented it online. It was amazing, but it would have been so much nicer for them to have the on-hands experience. And because we were a bit confined between the pandemic, it was after the pandemic, but this protest meant that we were also confined due to some political issues in our country. They received a medal, and because they weren't able to come and get it at that event, I did them a 3D medal. We chose a logo. It was printed in 3D. We got together and we gave it to them. And that was also very nice. The mixture of different things that were happening and I see this as related to video games because it is learning by playing. And that's where you talk to adults with parents about what are the benefits of video games, that they're not bad for you, etc. That is an issue that is important to talk about as well. That is the model that the kids developed. It was big. It was about as big as this table. And the kids were explaining all of the decisions they had made. And because there is a robotic element to this, I think Lego has a robotic part, and that's why they were part of this project. But kids learn programming by blocks. They set up challenges until they can do these type of models that works as a prototype. And then we go back to the concept of prototype. Many times we can generate a prototype on a paper, a video game with integrated mechanics, or a model. Here they were talking about some issues to do with sustainability, and we were also talking about climate change. The lift went up and down, etc. It was very, very nice. And this has to do a bit with my personal interests. I feel that within this world, you have to be proactive. You must learn continuously. And if you like something, you must research, search, and move forward. Because I didn't say this before, but when I got into this industry, it was pretty random. I used to work in a 2D animation series, TV series, which was called Chilean Geographic. And they said that something had opened up in this company. And I said, okay, fantastic. I decided to go and present myself. And when I got there, they said, okay, the job is free, but in 1 week, in 5 days, you must animate on this program, a program that I had never opened before. And I thought, oh, that's going to be very hard to learn it in 5 days. But because I already knew a program from Maya platform, so to go to this 3D was not too hard, but it was a bit like, I'm going to do it. And if you're animating on Friday on this program, you can take on this project. And that's how I began in the video game industry. So this has to do with my interest exploring with software learning. I love music, so I always try to put a lot of music and projections, mapping in my ideas. I also feel it's important to make the most of the context that we live in, where we are today. For example, what is up at the top has to do with the social protest that we had in Chile, which was in October 2019. When this happened, I'm sure you have all heard about what happened. I'm not going to explain it, but it had to do with big protests, marches, with the fact that we went walking for 2 hours in order to be able to protest and say we want changes. And what happened was there was a fantastic urban thing. Although the streets are a bit dirty, there was a very beautiful movement for urban art. Illustrators turned up, artists who had never drawn before, who went to put their drawings on the streets, and through the streets of the center of the city, they told a story with all of these images, colors, textures. It's beautiful. So those were the source of these ideas of wanting to tell a story through augmented reality, through images that I could see on the streets. And that was very interesting because if you went on one day, the next week, the same images were not there. So the story just flowed. It was very dynamic. So I had to make the most of where we are, the context, to understand that all of these areas, video games, telling stories, arts, have to do with our own history. And for me, that is very, very important. Move forward. Obviously, with all of these video game issue and the pandemic, I feel that this accelerated things that should have happened many years ago. discussions that you were having with people who were adult and who are always eternal arguments. But I feel that the pandemic, if we see the positive side of it, it accelerated these discussions, it put them on the table, and at least in Chile, there were TV programs, news who started to speak about the educational value of video games within the benefits that we have. I think it is important as developers to understand that in order to talk and argue and socialize and explain with reasons and motives why we're working on video games and why it's so important for our kids to be allowed to play. It is a long subject to discuss now. And I am a teacher in the School of Design. I speak in academic management in design in the University Andrés Bello, which is design for digital games. I work there. My heart is there. Graphic design, products, and wardrobe. And an important thing I hadn't mentioned is that for us at the university, we are changing the curriculum, and the focus is on telling local stories. Not just stories, but the mechanics. What are the local gaming mechanics? If we speak about first-person shooter, which is a mechanic that comes from the US, how can we translate that to our own mechanic? To tell local. It is University of Andrés Bello. We have a very big universe of students, and not many of them are women, although the amount of women who come into the industry is going up. It is still very, very small. Same as teachers. I was the only female teacher about 8 years ago. Now we have 3 within about 20, a group that is 20 men strong. So it is a very masculine industry. We need more women because we have a different perspective. Some things that happen at the university, we have the participation of students in different events. And this is very important, what we also discussed yesterday in the team. How can we motivate? How can we attract girls to come and participate? Because it is an industry that is for everybody. We can all work in it, in programming, in art, in graphic, in interface, in music, in telling stories. And within this project, I also have Sheroes in Games, this project that we were lucky enough to participate in as a workshop with a group of 30 students in this event that was called Superfest Chile, which is a massive popular culture event where we had the chance of speaking about the project, but also to make it visible. And that was the role that we have. Because we're part of the university, we can be part of bigger events and to be able to showcase it to Latin America and Chile in order to make it more visible, and then to deepen the explanations, to be able to show these projects that are amazing. That's part of the event. And I felt it was amazing because although I wasn't able to speak about the project in detail, there were very important people such as John Rhys Davis. I don't know if you've heard about him, do you? He is Lord of the Rings. He is the dwarf. This actor, fantastic actor. It was an incredible experience. He also participated in Superfest with other actors. And at least to be able to tell them we are participating in this project, which is about, and for him to sign was something that we feel we won, and we need to make the most of every single instance to be able to speak about what we do. Because as Anais was saying, we are many women in Latin America working, and at least in Chile, I haven't met many of them. I must say that. There's still, I don't know whether we don't have or we don't, I don't know what happens, but it is important to have these type of events to be able to meet others. Here you can see with the Power Rangers, we had a great time. It is a very entertaining profession, and we choose to be here due to a reason. Sometimes to choose and to be able to work in a profession that we love is not something everybody can boast about. I think that's the last image here. So I'm going to be watching you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for telling your stories. It's so nice to see what you all are doing and how great professionals you are and your projects. We don't have much more time for questions and answers, so let me just ask a few. She has just been telling us about how the pandemic has taught us many things about the virtual world and video games. I'd like to ask you, how do you think the video game industry has changed with the quarantines, and how is that going to affect us now that we're going to the in-person meeting? How has it changed in terms of conferences and so on? Would anyone like to start?
Environment can be a real environment for growth and knowledge and social interaction. It's something good that we have from this.
Bueno, lo voy a resumir lo que dijo, pero bueno, dijo esto de que antes los padres y madres a sus chicos era como, ¿qué haces todo el día frente a la pantalla? Salía afuera, y esto nos enseñó que frente a la pantalla podemos hacer de todo, podemos tener reuniones con amigos, podemos trabajar, podemos asistir a eventos, ir a la escuela.
Yo creo que una cosa en realidad muy
I think
interesante que
there's something very interesting that the pandemic has brought. Video games have always been a collaborative space, social space, but that has been very much stressed with the pandemic. Not only has it been stressed, but it was true with all generations. Something that we have been discussing at length with my partners over lunch is how we can see now young kids playing video games on a video call with their friends, because you can't visit your friend, you can't go to the park to play with other kids. So their park was opening Minecraft or other games and connecting both friends at the same time and just starting to play. I live with my cousins. He had his tablet, and he, at the corner of his tablet, he had a call with his friend, and they were both playing Minecraft, and that was their break time activity. I believe that it was something very interesting And considering all the bad aspects of the pandemic, it was quite a pretty thing to see how people started to look for these connection spaces. Older people, the elderly started to use technology to play with their grandchildren because they couldn't visit them. There was a boom of streaming. At some point in time, everyone I knew was doing some type of streaming for something. The human being is a social being, so they want to interact with others, even in situations where we are physically locked down. Okay, I think that the pandemic has taught the world that the video game industry is important because we were all locked down. We were all collapsed. We didn't know what was going to happen. And the only type of entertainment we had was video games. I believe that many people who didn't used to use video games, who didn't know much about them, and the children in their homes taught their parents. There was an acceleration of technology, which wasn't the case before that. We were called by several companies about what activities can you think of for our businessmen who are locked down. So we developed online tournaments. We brought fun to them and we taught all of this to them. And I think that this brought along a lot of people who used to criticize video games as being terrible. So it has shown that video games are a time of entertainment. There are different forms of entertainment, like the cinema, where there are horror movies and sports and all sorts of films. So here we are exactly showing the same thing, that there are games for all different ages and of different styles that we can share even if we are not together, and it is a form of entertainment. So thanks to the pandemic, we were able to show that the video game industry is not just a game, but it is an industry that unites people and which has helped us in these times of crisis, which were so complex to everyone. I would like to follow up on what has already been said. These 2 years of lockdown or these 2 years of pandemic have done something that was missing between adults and children, which is having the same language. Adults sitting down to play with their children is extremely necessary and important. And in a forceful manner, that is happening. I hope that it will continue to happen. I don't know what's going to happen now with the back to normal. I hope that there is a new normal, but I hope that this continues to exist in households. I agree with my colleagues, and something that I have seen much is the flexibilization of the work of the way in which we work. Since we were able to work remotely, the bonds with international colleagues have been strengthened very much. We work a lot from home now. Companies have started to open their offices for people to go if they prefer to do so. And that is a very interesting opportunity to broaden our connections, networks among girls, among workers, being able to work remotely, being able to work with other cultures. It is a very nice opportunity for us to grow professionally. Additionally, it has expanded the expressive field of video games, as well as its recognition as an artistic field, with the need to have exhibits during the pandemic. Lots of environments have been opening up, like or hubs. We have had some experiences regarding this here. This has been quite successful in other artistic, more orthodox sectors and the technological field. And this has helped video games to be seen not just as a valid field of entertainment, but also a field of expression that engages in a discussion with other cultural areas. And it has to do with art and with other type of games, as my colleague was mentioning a moment ago. We have 3 minutes left. So in a few words, in 5 or 6 words, could you please tell me what it means to you to belong to a community of this industry? It's just a few words, so you have to think hard, don't you? So you can discuss the importance. I feel extremely proud of belonging to this industry. I love it. I really love to participate of this media, and I think it was more than 6 words. I think that it provides us with a network of support. It provides us with learning opportunities, growth opportunities, opportunities for becoming our best version of ourselves, and opportunities for helping others eventually. It's the motivation of working with people who inspire you and who you can use as an example. For me, without a doubt, the video game industry, developers, communities have been a place like a home away from home. I have felt very much welcome as I am, being as I am. And that's extremely important for me. I have made friends, new girlfriends, and also pushing for having more women in the industry. It's quite an experience. I feel proud in a way, and I feel stressed also. It's something that I wouldn't change for anything. Well, for me, it is a passion. It's really rewarding to have seen how the industry has evolved and to see that I'm surrounded by increasingly more women, providing visibility to other women, inspiring women, and being part of these events is very important, and belonging to this is important. When I started this, I was the only woman in Colombia pushing for this, and finding this, it's great happiness, or brings a lot of happiness to me to see that there are increasingly more women. Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you very much for this great overview of some of these thousands, because there are thousands, lots of professions within this medium, within this discipline, within this field of knowledge, this field where knowledge is built. We will break and we will come back at 3:30 with another panel where we are going to be talking about STEAM. But before you leave, let me remind you that we have an exhibit on the second floor of 8 video games that were especially selected for this event, made by women, and many of them, they are premiering now, so don't miss it. And there is a space for institutions and universities who are carrying out different activities which have degree programs for continuous education, so that we get more involved in this industry. Thank you very much, and we'll reconvene at 3:30 here. And I'd like to thank the fantastic panelists. Thank you, Vale, once again.